Hello YouTube, my name's Randall. I thought I'd give you a little tour of my shop and property and some projects in progress and the metal shop, the new building I'm building. This is going to be my first attempt at a YouTube video, so bear with me a little bit, be kind. So behind me, off here, and I'm going to get behind the camera now so I can actually get a better perspective on what is going on. That gravel area down there is the base for my new shop. That's going to be a 40-foot wide by 56 feet long by 12-foot tall shop going in. I've got an Amish crew that is scheduled to come in probably beginning of January. You know how those dates work, they're never firm. But they should come in and they will put up essentially a pole barn and a 6-inch concrete slab, and the rest will be up to me to do. And I've got grand plans for what I want to do with that. That's going to be my metalworking shop, machining in back, and some welding and fabrication stuff in front. And because I like to keep the wife happy, she wanted a wood burning stove, so we're going to put a wood burning stove in the corner over there, in one corner of it. That'll be heat. I will probably put both natural gas and a mini split in there eventually also, so we'll have both heat and air conditioning. So to the left of that is actually the driveway going down to the road, so that's kind of a U-turn coming up from the road to get into the shop area. But that's how it worked with the layout of my property. The field beyond the shop is actually mine, but I'm leasing that out to a farmer to actually plant and till that. So I'm trying to keep the footprint of the shop fairly close so that we get more cropland out of that. Okay, that's the shop and the driveway. Over here, panning around slow, is where the Toyota and the Ford are parked. And then the edge of the house, and everything there looks a bit like a disaster. We are in the middle of putting up a front porch on the house. So we've got the deck built and we're now working on the roof structure. We want a covered porch so that we can have a dry area to keep boots and stuff. A lot of muddy boots on the farm. And then panning on around, try and give you a full 360 pan here. Past the house, not much. Over here is what was originally built as a garage but is completely converted to a workshop. This is the current workshop that I have. It's both my machining, welding, and woodworking equipment is all in there. It's a 30 by 32 shop. 8-foot high ceiling on the inside. The door doesn't quite open to 7 feet even, which makes it pretty difficult to get. I can't even get the big pickup truck in there, much less the tractors or anything. So as far as a usable farm garage, it's not. And then panning around here, we got lots of junk. Big coil of wire there is essentially what's going to power the shop. There is the current meter panel, so I have a 200 amp service coming in. It comes in along the tree line between the driveway and the shop location. Going back down and around. Hope you're not getting too dizzy. So that tree line there between the driveway, I don't know if you can see them. They're kind of in the trees. There is actually where it's marked for red flags for where the power is. I've got to bury a trench from the shop location back to the house. Oops, so let's go the other way. From the closest corner of the shop back to the house, and I'm going to run an internet fiber optic cable. I'm going to run natural gas line from the house main and water from the house over to the shop from there. And then what I'm going to do with electrical gets a little complicated. I'm thinking I'm going to actually need a 400 amp service between the house and the workshop, the new workshop. And I'll show it to you later. I have a couple of large machines, and I'm thinking of perhaps even something a little larger. If I can find a vertical milling center somewhere down the road that I can pick up for cheap that maybe needs to be rebuilt on the electronic side, I will purchase something like that. But that's going to even add more to my power budget. So I'm figuring I need a 400 amp service coming in. I will probably move my meter down to the basically the low end, the far end of the shop. So let's take a walk from here over to the current workshop, and I'll give you a little bit of a tour inside the going back around this way, and yes, more motion sickness here. Back around to the workshop, and I'll give you a tour of the inside of the current workshop with a heads up that when you start building a new workshop, cleaning and organizing your existing shop starts to fall to the wayside in terms of importance as you spend more time trying to get things like trenching into the new workshop. So let's go take a walk. No, I'm not going to post to YouTube me pushing the buttons. I don't think that would be the smartest thing in the world. But we'll poke our heads in the shop here. And right away on the inside of the door, I've got my shelves with most of my power tools. And then my, trying to give you some visual perspective here. There I've got my tool cabinets, and then my big workbench that I use for just about everything. And as I said, it's got a lot of clutter on it currently. The round thing you're looking at is actually the motor off of the 10EE that I'm working on. And there's a 6-jaw chuck sitting on the middle of the table. You can probably see. There's actually 2 of them, but the one that's fairly visible that I picked up at auction recently. It's a almost new looking, I think it's 3 or 4 years old actually, if I'm looking at the date on it, but very unused Bison 6-jaw 6-inch chuck that I'm hoping to put on the 10EE eventually. And then over on the farther workbench in front of the refrigerator, you can see is a bunch of the parts for the 10EE and my refrigerator, and over there the blue thing is the 10EE Monarch lathe, 12 by 20 roughly, something along that order. It's been repainted, but I've got a lot of work to do on it yet, so it's quite a ways from being usable. I will probably take the whole bed apart again. I've had it apart to repaint it, but I'm going to take it apart again and probably ship the bed off to have the bed reground. So that's a project that is in the wings. Back there to the right of that is actually my wife's refinishing bench. I work out here on various things, and my wife likes to do refinishing of wood projects, so that's her spot for doing that. You can see then in the foreground, and I'm going to back up again. Okay. In addition to a mess, I've got a shaper, a woodworking shaper, a joiner and planer there. I've got a sander, And then we get over to the table. Well, the table saw is behind some of this, but getting back here up front, there's my horizontal bandsaw. Very useful tool. I started out with one of the Harbor Freight. I think actually one I had was from Northern Tool, 4x6 classics. This one's much nicer in that it has the rotating head, so that you don't have to use wrenches to change the angle. You just throw a lever to loosen the clamp, and you can rotate the whole head to anywhere between a 90-degree cut and then 60 degrees off of one side of that. And then bandsaw there, the Ryobi bandsaw is a I forget what they call it now, but it's a wood cutting bandsaw. It is a real wide blade for cutting real thin veneer type slabs. My regular woodworking bandsaw, Grizzly tool there with the you can see the dust extractor stack on it. And then going past that off to the right is and let's see if I can move in here a little bit. Bear with me. Okay, there is my Grizzly combination wood metal bandsaw that I have set up. I use it just for metal cutting. You can switch it in speed ranges for metal or wood. That requires opening it up and switching some things around. And then within the different speed ranges, it's a VFD operated, so I think I can go from about 50 feet per minute to about 300 feet a minute, maybe 400 feet a minute in metal cutting range. Don't quote me on that. That's not a go use the Grizzly spec if you really are curious. And then back there, one of my early metalworking acquisitions is that Monarch 1944 12-inch CK. They call it a 12-inch CK, but the data plate on it says it has a 14-inch swing, which is what it really swings. It's about a 3,500 to 4,000 pound lathe, and I'm very fond of that, even though it's in a little bit of rough shape and needs some continued work. I got that about 2.5, 3 years ago, and have been through it. I've been through the quick change box and completely changed out all the bearings on the quick change gearbox. Been through the apron, cleaned out the apron, changed out most of the bearings on the apron, and been through the oil feed on the apron. Been through the cross side and cleaned it out. Same thing with the compound. But I eventually am going to need to excuse me, probably take that carriage off and Moglice or Rulon or Tersite or any one of those technologies. I have to decide which one I want to pursue. That bottom of that carriage, and then re-scrape that to fit on the lathe. There's quite a bit of the bedways on that are hardened, but the carriage, bottom of the carriage obviously is not. And so the carriage fit is a little sloppy. It'll rack left and right as it moves, so it doesn't move exactly straight. It tilts a little bit as you move, because the inverted V-ways on the bottom of the carriage are essentially hourglass shaped. So that needs work. The tailstock on there also, I've had it apart and cleaned it up and put a new thrust bearing in it, but it really is in pretty rough shape, so I'm going to have to basically have that bored and honed, and then either make a new quill or have that one chromed. I'm not even sure how thick they can chrome, but it's going to take quite a bit of work to clean that up. So, and right now this beast is apart. I was in the middle of a project, which is why it's kind of a mess. I was making a bearing pit plate, which is the piece right there, for a stand I want to build a tool stand for sitting between the mill and the lathe here, where I can put a lot of my common use tools, sort of a multiple rotating table kind of thing with a lot of my common tools that I use between the two. I just finished building, oh boy, kind of a eye challenge there of colors and stuff, but in front of the all the plastic bins back there, you can see my recent build of a tool stand for the quick change tool post tool holders. That rather than attaching that directly to the lathe, I've actually got that sitting attached to a base down there that I can so I can basically move that around, and the arm pivots on the top, and then the back of the thing pivots. So if I want to, even where it's just sitting, I can push the tailstock all the way toward the chuck, and then swing that over and basically have all my tools on the close side of the tailstock rather than the far side. So it just depends on what I want to do, and I'm kind of playing with that. That's a fairly new addition with that. But just a little bit more on this lathe here. Over on this end, you can see I've got it apart. The clutch is out right now, and I'm working on that. The clutch bearing gave me some problems, and I suspect the real original issue in that was that there's some bushings in that should have been in there that weren't. And I'd been through there once before and actually put a new bearing in it, but I didn't really think it through and look at the bushings. So this bench over here is normally my electronics workbench, but you can see the pulley or sheave if you prefer, and the clutch parts lined out on the table there for the Monarch. And for the Monarch 12-inch, the electronics behind that on the board is actually work in progress for the DC motor for the Monarch 10EE. And I actually designed a control board, and that's buried in the junk over there. Again, as I said, not well organized right now, but that's actually a control board. I'm working on replacing the electronics for the DC motor. As you saw when I walked in, the DC motor is not in the best shape. I got all the electronics working and then got the motor running, and then realized, well, the motor needed new brushes, and I took the brushes apart and looked at the armature commutator, and needed to clean that up and turn that. And then when I turned that, new bearings, and then I started looking at the wiring inside the motor, and a lot of the wiring was cracked, and the insulation was cracked, and the copper underneath that was green corroded. So I've got to do something with that motor, and I'm not sure what. I'd like to keep it DC, but the easy solution may be to just throw in a big AC motor and VFD, and if that happens, that's what happens. So there's the other end of that Monarch, the 10EE. So you can see it's sitting up on a stand. I put it up on a stand because for working in the compartments underneath, if it's all the way on the floor, it will kill your back to get down there. I'm not of the age where I like rolling around on the floor trying to wire electronics. But that, as I said, that project got put on hold, pushed to the back of many things in here. And then coming back around from this side, you can see there's the joiner planer again. I've got a table saw. The bandsaws are here. Over there I've got an exercise bike, which I should use more. My little desk over there and monitor, and there's a surface plate back there. And then back by the door where I came in, several welders. I've got a, we'll walk back over there, Craftsman Mig Welder. That's the welder I've had the longest. I think that's from about, oh, I don't know. I won't try and guess right now. Fairly old. And then a Everlast TIG stick welder. And then also over on the shelf there, if I zoom up a little bit, that's the TIG welder on the stand there. And then over there is a Everlast plasma cutter, 60 amp plasma cutter. Could use something a little, bigger for cutting some thick stuff, but it is useful when I need it. So, let's see. Let's zoom back out again. And desk has back there underneath the tarp, has a computer on it, and then the computer can run the big monitor, and I have my dish network feed out here too, so I can be quite comfortable out in the shop. Coming back around, I might have to move here a little bit to get a better perspective on this. Yeah, let me back up. There's a Grizzly horizontal vertical mill. It's a, let's see if I step around here, it's a G0757Z. I bought that not really knowing what I was doing, but wanting a mill that would serve me well. I won't say the end-all be-all of mills, because you'll see I have a much bigger mill when we take a tour of the other building. But that mill, VFD controlled for the vertical spindle, and then two speeds, and I forget the exact table travel dimensions, power feed, yada yada, DRO, factory DRO on it. It's about I think about 2,000 pounds of mill. So I have used the horizontal milling option on there very little. You basically have to swing the head around, which is not that bad. Well, if you want to put an arbor in it, you have to swing the head around, and you can see the arbor arm is back there. If you want to just put a face mill or something, short in it, you can just put it in the arbor. But the horizontal mill is pulley driven. You have to get in the back cabinets there and change pulleys to change the speeds, which is pretty cumbersome. Obviously a lot of people and a lot of machines worked fine off of pulleys, but when you've got the vertical part is essentially VFD controlled, and the horizontal part is pulley controlled, it feels like a real step down. So that's the mill. I could try and step back a little bit and give you a little bit better picture of the whole thing. So just anyway, that's the mill I bought. If I had to do it again, I doubt I would buy, I certainly wouldn't buy the horizontal vertical combined. I'd have just bought probably a vertical mill. I'm not sure if I would have bought a Grizzly mill either. I find Grizzly works really good for their woodworking tools. I'm impressed with that. But their metal machining tools, I think basically the owner of that company is a woodworker himself, but I think with metalworking, they don't understand precision at the executive level that is needed for metalworking. So the quality is not great, it's not up to, but again, that's probably what you get with a lot of the imports, and I don't have a lot of comparison. And then just back in the corner there between the mill and the lathe, you can see up on the ceiling, that's an 80,000 BTU natural gas heater. Then grinder over there. Obviously having a grinder close to your metalworking machines is not ideal, and basically I don't use that grinder, but to the right of the grinder flashing is the diamond lapping machine that I made. It's got a VFD on top that is, let's see if I can zoom me up a little bit. And that's just a shop made tool. It's a like a 3rd horsepower 3-phase motor, 120 volt VFD to drive it, and then a diamond lap on the front of it. So that's a diamond lapping machine. It's set up so that if I pull, I'm trying to hold the camera so this gets to be a little awkward, but if I pull the pins here on both sides, then I can just pivot the table out of the way, and makes changing the discs real easy here. They just pop off on magnets, sort of a Stefan Gatteswinter, if I'm pronouncing his German name correctly, pop off, and then you can see I've got different grit plates on the side there. And then this goes back on, this comes up, and the pins go in. So that's pretty much this shop. Going back, just another look around. Window unit air conditioner. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't put the window unit in. I'd put the money into a mini split. And then the bandsaws around in the mill.